I grew up in a home where we sang the praises of Jesus all the time. I knew all the Bible stories, and I've always loved going to church. And it was easy for me to believe that God was good when everything around me was good. But it's one thing to praise Jesus when life is going well, and it's another thing to praise him when it's not. Both are good. In fact, we as Christians have to know how to do both. And I learned that when I was 17. When I was 17, I got really sick with E. coli poisoning, and that ended up turning into hemolytic uremic syndrome, which attacked and began to shut down my kidneys. I was in terrible pain day after day after day, and the doctors did not know how to help me. I was in 3 hospitals in 5 days, and I kept getting worse and worse. I remember when my doctor in the second hospital came into my room, and she told me that she did not have the medical expertise to help me in the way that I needed, and that they as a hospital weren't equipped to handle my situation. 2 hours later, I found myself strapped to a stretcher on an ambulance headed to Riley Children's Hospital totally alone. Once I arrived and got settled into my new room, the kidney doctor came in, and it was his job to tell me and my parents what we could expect from the disease that I had. Strokes, seizures, and transplants were just a few of the possibilities for me. He also told me that my kidneys were in such bad shape that the minimum amount of time that I would be there would be at least a month. But as I sat there and I watched my parents' faces fill with fear. But as I watched them, I honestly didn't hear much of what the doctor was saying, because not only was the doctor in the room with me, but my Jesus was in the room with me as well. And I promise you, and I say this, but I could feel his presence next to me like I could feel a friend. It was in that bed, in that room, that Jesus reminded me of every single promise he has ever spoken over me. In that moment, I made a conscious decision to focus on Jesus and to listen to his still small voice rather than focus on the reality of what was happening right in front of me. It was in that bed, in that hospital room, where my faith finally became my own. It was there that I knew that I was completely in the hands of Jesus and that he would keep all of his promises to me. His promises of adventure, of marriage, of family, all the things that I have dreamed of my whole life. He reminded me that I could not do those things from a hospital bed. There was nowhere else to turn but Jesus, and what should have been the worst conversation of my entire life ended up being the most life-giving conversation that I've ever had. But it was all because of who I decided to listen to. What Satan intended to use to destroy me and to kill me, my Jesus used to bring life. And from that point on, I knew I was going to be okay. 8 days later, I left Riley's Children's Hospital. My kidneys went from functioning at 9% to 75% in 8 days. No seizures, no transplants, no complications, just 3 rounds of dialysis. I was living a miracle. And ever since then, my life and the way that I worship is totally different. I don't get on this stage week after week or come to this church because God always answers my prayers exactly how I want. But I come here because he is worthy of it. He is worthy of my praise, and he is worthy of my adoration, and he is so much bigger than what I see and what I feel around me. Even when I do not understand what he is doing, I have learned that he is always, always good. I am alive today because he is faithful, and I worship him not because he healed me, but because he was there in the midst of it. He didn't leave me then, and I believe that with all my heart that he's never left you. I am healed today. I'm completely restored, and I am looking forward to all of the adventures and all of the promises that he has before me. My name is Melissa, and I'm here to tell you that I have decided to follow Jesus.